to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And during this video, we're going to discuss a phone call between the President of Russia and the President of the United States of America. We have lots of very interesting statements based on the results of this conversation, but saying the truth, we see that the Russians and the Americans give us completely different statements regarding the results of this conversation. Furthermore, during this video, we're going to talk about massive missile and drone strike that took place during the previous nights. According to information we have, the Russians used a significant number of drones, and we have another anti-record. Furthermore, during this video, we're going to talk about the changes on the ground. According to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their positions once again significantly, especially in the northeastern part of the Kharkiv Oblast and in the South Donetsk direction. So let's start, and first let's talk about the phone call between the President of Russia and the President of the United States of America. The conversation between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump lasted almost an hour. According to the Kremlin, the dialogue was businesslike and concrete. Russian President aide Yuri Ushakov on the president's conversation. Putin informed Trump about the progress of the Istanbul agreements between Russia and Ukraine. Putin informed Trump that Russia continues to seek a negotiated solution to the Ukrainian conflict and informed the American president that Russia will not give up on eliminating all the root causes of the confrontation that has arisen. So a lot of very interesting things also about the Middle East, about Ukraine, about everything, about US tax reform. And after this conversation, we have another statement made by the head of the Russian delegation at talks with Ukraine. A new chapter is beginning. Kirill Dmitriev on the results of the talks between the leaders of Russia and the United States. Urgent. President Putin congratulated President Trump on the US Independence Day during a warm and constructive telephone conversation. Positive cooperation between the US and Russia is vital for global peace and prosperity. So these are the statements that we got from the Russian Federation, but when talking about the United States of America, we have completely different picture. Trump says he is not happy and didn't make any progress in today's phone call with Putin. So very weird and very strange picture, because we see that the Russians are very happy with this conversation, but we see that Trump's not happy. He's not happy, and he didn't see any progress in the special military operation. So why we have this gap, very difficult to understand, but obviously during the next several days we're gonna find this out. Furthermore, right after this conversation, for some reason, the Russians decided to congratulate the Ukrainians with the American Independence Day, because they launched massive drone and missile strike, and mainly the Russians were attacking the city of Kyiv. This is the map of approximate roads of Russian attacks, and as you can see, the Russians were attacking mainly from the northeastern part of Ukraine, so from the area of Kursk and Bryansk regions, and the Russians used significant number of drones and missiles to attack the city of Kyiv. Later, the Ukrainians provided us this picture and these numbers, and according to them, the Russians during the previous 12 hours used 550 drones and missiles altogether. The Ukrainians managed to bring a lot of them according to their numbers, according to their statistics, but when talking about pictures and videos that we were receiving during the previous night, we believe that Ukrainians most likely gave us wrong numbers. We have a lot of explosions, we have a lot of strikes, almost the entire southwestern and the western part of the city of Kyiv was covered with fire. We have smoke screen, it's impossible to breathe in Kyiv. The local authorities suggested the Ukrainians to stay at home or to wear some mask with the purpose to reduce damage they can get from this smoke screen or something like this. So the situation is very difficult. This is the picture that you can see from your window if you are in the city of Kyiv, if you're living there. Furthermore, we have this map of the fire anomalies, and as I told you, almost the entire southwestern and the western part of the city of Kyiv was covered with fire. Furthermore, as you can see, the Russians struck the area in the vicinity of the Zhuliany airfield, so we're talking about this territory. And according to many sources, the Russians were trying to destroy and to damage probably the final air defense system that Ukrainians still have, and most likely this Patriot system was destroyed. Furthermore, today we got another report from Germany, for example, because according to information we have, Friedrich Merz is trying to find a solution how to purchase several Patriot systems in the United States of America and to transfer them to Ukraine. So this is the article I'm talking about. Germany is looking for ways to supply weapons to Ukraine and wants to conclude a secret deal with the US on weapons for Kyiv. The US decision to suspend the supply of a number of weapons to Ukraine has caused alarm in Berlin. The German authorities consider the lack of missiles for Patriot air defense systems in the Ukraine armed forces to be the most serious problem. And by the way, basically the previous night we saw exactly, and we can see right now this morning, the consequences of the absence of air defense missiles and systems for Ukraine. At night, Ukraine was attacked by 11 missiles, 1 Kinzhal, 6 ballistic Iskander, and 4 cruise missiles, 539 drones. Ukrainians, according to them, managed to destroy almost everything. According to pictures and videos we are receiving from the city of Kyiv, it seems that Ukrainians haven't managed to bring down even a single air target or something like this. So the situation remains tense and very interesting once again that this attack obviously has real connections with the phone conversation between Trump and Putin and Putin and Macron, and this attack is the consequences of those talks and those conversations. So this is the situation, and now let's discuss the situation on the ground because we have a lot of very interesting changes. And first, we're going to talk about the northeastern part of Kharkiv region. I would like to remind you that yesterday the Russian sources published this video, and the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation confirmed that the group of forces north managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Milovoy, and the Russians published this video where we can see how 2 Russian soldiers raised their flags on the building in the central part, which was obviously geolocated. And based on this video, most of the mappers made adjustments of their own maps yesterday by coloring the entire village of Milovoy under complete Russian control. But of course, we had questions: where exactly is the border? Where exactly where was the front line of combat contact in this area? Of course, everybody colored the village of Milovoy, but yesterday nobody know for sure where exactly the Russians managed to get to. And today we have another article that was published by pro-Ukrainian mappers by Deep State, and they show indeed significant progress on the ground. Once again, this is the situation by the end of the 3rd of July of 2025. The Russians, most of the mappers colored just the village of Milovoy according to the border of this settlement on the map, and today Deep State adjusted this part of the front line significantly by adding probably 3 more times territories that the Russians established control over. Obviously, this is a breakthrough, and now we have no doubts that the Russians are planning to move further in the southwestern direction, deep inside of the territory of Kharkiv region, with the purpose, at least for now, to establish complete control over the villages of Ambarne, Zabrynka, and the village of Khatnia. If the Russians are able to improve their positions this way, this is going to be a critical situation for the Ukrainians. Furthermore, by these attacks, the Russians would be able to get the roads, real roads that they can use to move faster and deeper inside of the Kharkiv Oblast. Furthermore, this is not the only progress on the ground during the previous nights. According to pro-Ukrainian sources, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly, several kilometers in the southeastern directions towards the river Voskol. So, for example, this is the situation on the ground by the end of the 3rd of July of 2025, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 4th of July of 2025. As you can see, the Russians improved their position significantly in this area as well. And it seems that the Russians are going to advance further deep inside of the territory of the Kharkiv Oblast in the south, let's say western direction, with the purpose to maintain the lines and most likely to shorten the distances like this. So everything to the east of this red line is what the Russians are tasked for, and they're going to move further. As for now, it's very difficult to say what exactly we can see right now. It's just another media attack from the Russian side, because when talking about this northeastern western part of the Kharkiv Oblast, there is no, let's say, strategical objects, just fields and the significant number of no-names villages. So that's it, nothing more. Maybe the Russians are advancing because they see that Ukrainians don't have any possibilities, forces, weapons to hold these territories. So that is why the Russians think that they can take as many as possible square kilometers, and they will do this during the next stage of the special military operation, or is something bigger. It's an attempt from the Russian side to cut and cauldron the city of Kupiansk, to finish the battle for the city of Volchansk, and to begin the offensive operation in the direction of the city of Kharkiv from the southwest and in the direction of the city of Izium from the north. So as for now, it's unclear what exactly the Russians are going to do, so let's wait and see, and obviously we're going to find this out. Now let's move further. Another important thing is that during the previous night, the Ukrainians also attacked the territory of Donetsk and Lugansk regions. We have lots of missile strikes, lots of explosions. And you know that this is very interesting because after the Russians managed to establish complete control over the city of Avdiivka, we haven't received even a single video or report that Ukrainians attacked the city of Donetsk or Makiivka. And the main reason of that was that the Russians, by taking under control Avdiivka and territories to the west and to the north, managed to create a buffer zone, and now the Ukrainians lost any possibility to attack Donetsk with artillery, with HIMARS missiles and so on. But I would like to remind you that Zelensky was talking a lot during the previous days about their own ballistic missiles, long-range ballistic missiles, and maybe the Ukrainians began using these long-range ballistic missiles with the purpose to attack Donetsk. Of course, this means that most likely the Ukrainians are going to intensify their attempts to attack the city of Donetsk and Makiivka in the future. But from the other side, this means that the Russians would be forced to create a bigger buffer zone with the purpose to force the Ukrainian artillery and rocket systems to move further deep inside of the territory of Ukraine and to reduce Ukrainian possibilities to attack the city of Donetsk. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians continued their offensive operation. And telling the truth, today we got additional statements from the soldiers on the ground that the Russians are at a final stage of the battle for the settlement of Kamenskaya. Furthermore, the Russians once again managed to improve their positions in this area. I would like to remind you that Russian offensive operation in this area started several days ago. And yesterday, starting on the 2nd of July more precisely, the Russians entered a final phase of offensive operation. And during this period of time, the Russians managed to improve their positions significantly. This is, for example, the situation by the end of the 3rd of July. And this is the situation by the beginning of the 4th of July. As you can see, the Russians managed to secure completely the western flank of this area, and as you can see, this information was confirmed by neutral mappers. Furthermore, sources reported that today or tomorrow we should expect that the Ministry of Defense will confirm complete control over the settlement, and this is going to be a very important victory for the Russians in the Zaporozhye direction. Now let's talk about the South Donetsk direction. The Russians continue their offensive operation, and we have significant changes in this area as well. The Russians continue their offensive operation and continue bombing and attacking the settlement of Andreevka-Klivtsova, because this is the most important settlement that Ukrainians have to supply and support their contingent in the pocket that the Russians are trying to cut right now. I would like to remind you that the Russians are tasked to establish complete control over the villages of Malievka, Voskresenka, Mirne, Podubne, and Tolstoy. So this is the very important area for the Russians, and this is already almost the end of the Dnipro region in this area. During the previous 24 hours, we have changes, and this is the first update to the west of the village of Veselaya. So this is the situation by the end of the 3rd of July. These territories used to be considered as a gray zone or contested area, and now we have no doubts that the Russians secured this territory completely. We came to this based on the video that was published by the Ukrainian sources of 67th Mechanized Brigade. In this video, we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians with FPV drones, and one of the episodes of these attacks took place exactly in this point along this tree line. Based on this video, we have adjusted these territories under complete Russian control, and we see that the Russians continue shortening the distance with the village of Voskresenka. Furthermore, today, the pro-Ukrainian sources of Deep State made very interesting changes on the ground as well. Today, the Deep State shown us that the Russians have almost completely secured the village of of Podubne. And most likely tomorrow or today, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm this information. Even we're gonna see lots of videos with Russian flags all over the entire settlement. Furthermore, according to pro-Russian resources and according to pro-Ukrainian sources as well, the Russians answered and improved their position significantly in the village of Tolstoy. So both villages could be taken by the Russians in coming hours. When talking about the Pokrovsk direction during the previous 12 hours, we haven't received anything special, just several mappers confirmed that yes, indeed, the Russians during the previous day managed to improve their positions. When talking about pro-Russian resources, they reported that currently there is no more gap and no more pocket between the villages of Marina, Malinovka and Mirolubovka. So this pocket was cut by the Russians, and the Russians managed to get for as close as possible to the villages of Mykolaievka, Novoekonomichne from the east and from the southeast. As for the city of Chasiv Yar, we have changes as well. Today, several mappers confirmed that the Russians continue their advancing, and currently the clashes are taking place for the last square kilometers in this area. The Russians improved their positions in the northern part of the settlement, in the central and the western part of the settlements, and the Russians began offensive operation in the direction of the last micro-district of the city of Chasiv Yar by the name of Zemlyanki. In this video, we can see how Russians were bombing and attacking probably the last stronghold in this area, which most likely the Russians are going to storm in the very coming days, very near future, probably in the very coming hours. So this is the situation. We expect that in 2 weeks, obviously in 2 weeks, the city of Chasiv Yar would be taken and would fall in Russian hands. As for the rest of Ukraine, we haven't received anything special, just regular activities and very heavy clashes. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.